Tonight, Joker's daughter's time with Red Hood has come to an end, and it's even less satisfying than you could possibly imagine. Constantine heads out to Hollywood, and he has some choice words for the city of Weinstein. And Harley Quinn gets yet another spin-off series, because if you went to DC Editorial and said, I want to write about Harley's left shoe, you'd be signed for an exclusive contract there on the spot. All that and more tonight on the Not-So-New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 241 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and we're in the final 10. Oh boy, oh god, final 10 episodes of this show. I mean, I say this literally every episode. I come up with some new little metric and say like, oh, this is it. Final episodes, we're almost there. But like, come on, final 10. That feels big. That feels like it's worth at least noting. Also, coincidentally, only 10 comics came out this week. Coincidence? Yes, absolutely. They didn't know I was doing this show 10 years ago. You crazy? Anyway, I'll just mention the comics that we have coming out this week in roughly alphabetical order, and then if I think of anything else I want to say, I'll tell you. So we have Batman/Superman, Black Canary, Catwoman, Constantine the Hellblazer, Earth 2 Society, Gotham Academy, GLC, The Edge of Oblivion, Harley Quinn and her gang of Harleys, Red Hood and Arsenal, and Starfire. So big things out of that, things worth attention. Batman/Superman is the next part of the Final Days of Superman arc. If you didn't know that was going on because you missed last week's episode, sorry, Superman's gonna die. Whoops, catch up with that. Also, Harley Quinn and her gang of Harleys, the fourth pillar of DC Comics, as another spin-off miniseries. Admittedly, Amanda Conner is not on this one in terms of writing, but she is on it, or she did the cover, I think. But Jimmy Palmiotti is still on it, and Frank Tieri is helping with the writing. So just know that that's happening. You probably should know the main Harley Quinn run before getting into this, but if you want to get into it individually, you can. They do a good job of bringing on new readers. Beyond that, not a whole lot else going on in terms of important stuff. Red Hood and Arsenal sucks. Just be aware of that. But yeah, not a whole lot else. So don't think I have anything else I really want to add. Final 10 episodes here. I don't think I've ever mentioned this before, but I do want to make it clear how the end of this show is going to work. The final episode, quote unquote, in terms of the week that DC Universe Rebirth came out, is actually episode 247. It's not episode 250, which is what I'm going to. The final 3 episodes are going to be made up of all the books that were part of the New 52 series that didn't finish by that week. Almost everything had 1 or 2 more issues to go. Even like Justice League, that one was on issue 50, and then 51 and 52 came out afterwards. So I'll be finishing up all of those series over the last 3 episodes. They will be monumentally sized episodes. I'm talking possibly 4 hours long in some cases. Just know that that's happening. But episode 247 is the quote-unquote finale if you're only interested in right up until it ends. But you'll be missing out on a bunch of endings if you don't stick around. So yeah, just be aware that's going to be happening in like, 2 months? Month and a half? Christ, it is sneaking up on me so fast. Anyway, enough of this beginning. Let's get to the end. Start with comics. Batman Superman number 31, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Doug Mahnke. This is the next part of the Final Days of Superman, continuing on from Superman number 51. Superman is dying, and he's trying to deal with stuff like that. This issue only kind of picks up where he's just going to talk to people. So we see Superman is flying his way over to Gotham because he's like, yeah, not really a fan of stepping in on my friend's turf. It's a bit messed up for me. And we see over in this book, officially Bruce Wayne has returned. He's battling against a guy named Tusk. I know Tusk has appeared elsewhere, but by God, I couldn't remember where. And as he comes in, we see Batman's like, oh, Tusk, I'll take out your other Tusk because it's the ivory or whatever, add it to my son's collection. And then Superman comes in, just yoinks him out and says like, hey, Batman, how's it going? So all of Tusk's goons are put away, and he's like, look, I don't really have a lot of time here. I'm a little busy. I wanted to talk to you. And Batman's like, Superman, did you know your eyes are green? That's new. And he's like, yeah. Did you bring your car? And he's like, no. Is it cool? I'm going to fly us back to your cave. And Batman's like, as he's being carried back, he's like, you're really pissing me off. You know that? So as they make their way back, Batman gets the entire lowdown. He's like, okay, yeah, you went through all this stuff. You're dying. Like, I get it. Your fortress has run tests and all that. But did you? And before Batman can even finish, Superman's like, whatever you're going to say, yes. I have literally done everything here. I have no way out of this. And Batman's like, dude, I literally brought my son back from the dead like months after he died. Nothing is impossible. We can definitely do this. And you're still here. Like, we got that up on us. And Superman's like, look, if I thought there were any chance, I would take it, but I can't. It's baked into my system now. There's no way I'm getting out of this. And I'm making my peace with it. I've resigned myself to what's going on. I'm not here for sympathy. I'm here because I need help in getting set up for what happens next. And Batman's like, okay, so what's up? And he's like, I'm looking for Kara, my cousin, Supergirl. She disappeared. She's off the grid. I don't know where she ended up at, and I was hoping that you, world's greatest detective, would be able to look that up. And he's like, I will do literally everything I can. Apparently, this is the first time Superman's meeting Titus, which is Damian's dog, and he says like, oh yeah, tell Damian to have Crypto meet up with Titus. I'm sure they'd have a blast together and all that stuff. And then he comes across Batcow, and he's like, were you growing up in Kansas, Bruce? Because this seems a little bit off kilter for you. And he's like, yeah, sure. So Batman's continuing to look stuff up. Superman's like, all right, well, give me a call if you find anything. But then Alfred steps in and he's like, hey, I couldn't help overhearing everything that happened. And Alfred just reaches out his hand, shakes Superman's hand and says like, thank you for everything. And he's like, yeah, of course, you're welcome. So Superman goes off and Batman, he's sitting at the computer just continuing his work and then just backhands one of his monitors out of anger and like rage. So then we go over to the other Superman, the solar Superman, they're calling him. And we see that there's a burning building in Metropolis, and Superman shows up in there, and he's like, hey, I see you, stay calm, whatever. And he comes out, and he's rescued these people, and he looks just like Clark to an extent, but he's wearing the S. And he comes up and says, like, Jimmy Olsen's there taking pictures. He's like, hey, Jimmy. He's like, I'm sorry, do I know you? He's like, of course you do. And then flies off, and Jimmy's like, what the hell is that? So Superman's then flying over, he sees a kid on a roof playing with a pigeon coop, and then he crashes. Superman crashes, loses his powers. He's back to the drunk guy who went off the road before. And the kid's like, hey, mister, you just crashed into my pigeon coop. You owe me for materials. And the guy pushes the kid off the roof. And he's just like, a stupid kid with your big mouth. But then as he's falling, the guy transforms back into Solar Superman. And he's like, I've got you. And those birds weren't meant to be all caged up. And he flies away. And the kid's like, what? So we go back over and Superman meets up with Batman. He's like, look, I've seen that you've been pushing yourself. You've been making even more saves than usual. You sure you shouldn't be slowing down a little bit because your body is not going to be able to take it? He's like, would you? It's like, no. Well, all right then. There's your answer. So Batman reveals that the last place that they saw Kara was down at a cafe. She was working there. That was at the end of the Supergirl series. And he's like, yeah, I saw her a couple weeks there and whatever. When was the last time she was there? It was like a couple weeks ago. And then she just took off. And Superman's like, all right, do you know where she went? And it's like, yeah, apparently she was going towards National City. So he's like, cool, that's my next stop. And then they get attacked by a bunch of monsters that all look like pieces of the Chinese zodiac. We got a dragon, a tiger, a boar, and a bull. And all of them come in, and they're all saying, God, I'm going to butcher this, Shao Zi? I don't know. They're all chanting this phrase, and Batman immediately recognizes saying that they're the four pillars. They are the embodiment of the Chinese zodiac. And as they're fighting back, Superman's like, why are we the targets? And why do they keep repeating those words? And Batman's like, I don't know, just keep going. So they continue, they just take them out one by one, doing what they can. Eventually, the boar is not taken hostage, but they've knocked out all the other ones. They're taking that one in, and he says a different phrase. He says "we mukin," something like that, and he just explodes. And Superman tanks the hit, and he says like, "All right, well, they exploded rather than answer any of our questions, so that's messed up." But then the dragon guy, turns out he's not fully out. He sneaks up on Superman, takes the slash, and then flies away, also exploding. But it does draw blood, and Batman's like, "Hey, you're bleeding. Like, that's unusual for you." And he's like, "Yeah, I mean, it's already healing, but I got to get to National City and talk to Kara. I need to find Supergirl so she can take my place." And our final page reveal is Supergirl, who is seemingly unconscious in some sort of machine being analyzed over something. I mean, it's a good next part of the story. I don't have any sort of problems with the issue itself. The Chinese Zodiac thing feels like it kind of comes out of nowhere, but considering that we know that this Solar Superman has its links, its roots in China, I'm not, it just feels like we're building up the story. It doesn't feel like it's out of nowhere. The Kara stuff feels a little bit weird because, I mean, this is just the nature of publishing, so be it. But when the Supergirl run ended, the implication, the thing that was happening was Kara had lost her powers. She was there and she was effectively like, I think she burned her hand on something. She's like, wait, what? And then it just never got dealt with. Like, we never picked it up in anything else. And so be it. That was back at like pre-convergence. That was a long time ago. I understand why they haven't gone back to it, and coming back to it here makes sense, but it just feels like one of those weird things of, oh yeah, I guess that's where we left it off at. Beyond that, I mean, it's a fine issue. I really like Batman's reaction to Superman dying. Obviously, he's not the best at dealing with death. It makes sense. So kudos on the writer for that. I honestly, no real faults to this issue. If it just feels like a part 2 of a larger story. It doesn't feel like this is all that important to what is going on, but it feels like the whole of it, this is just leading into that. So yeah, I'll say this is I'll give it an 8. I think it's got that. It's a perfectly good part of the story, and Doug Mahnke's art definitely shines here. So 8. Harley Quinn and Her Gang of Harleys, #1, written by Frank Tieri and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Alain Mauricet. So, what the hell is a gang of Harleys? Well, over in the main Harley Quinn book, which the opening pages of this do give a complete breakdown of, Harley was doing too much stuff, and she decided to hire on a group of essentially hired guns, except it's actually just fists that take on her branding as her gang of Harleys. And they're from all around Brooklyn. They all follow different paths of life, and they all just kind of help her out doing whatever. And as a brief intro here, we have Harley Queens, Harlem Harley, Bolly Quinn, Harvey Quinn, Carly Quinn, Hannah Quinn, and Coach. Coach is not part of the rest of the group. She is blind and in a wheelchair, and she kind of just, like, man in the chair calls the shot sort of stuff. So there were also a bunch of quintuplets. They left the group, so now we're just down to that group. So we then open up the story proper here by showing Harley is tied up in a chair, screaming, saying how she needs to be let go immediately. And it's like, okay, but we started a bit too far ahead. Let's see how we got here. And we go back to some random place in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, that apparently is being attacked by the hipster mafia. And by that, Harley is just beating up a bunch of hipsters. It's like they're going through and they're making fun of the fact that, like, everything here is organic and how many accessories they're wearing and blah, blah, blah. And eventually they're just like, oh, what are you talking about? We're just hipsters. We're not part of any mafia or anything like that. And they're just like, oh, yeah? Then explain all this, the sleeve tattoos and all the other stuff like that. And that guy's wearing a monocle. That only evil people wear monocles, or Mr. Monopoly or Mr. Peanut. And then eventually, like, as they continue to, like, try to sell their stories, saying, like, no, seriously, like, also mafia is a pejorative term, it's derogatory, and then they just beat her up some more. Eventually, one of them steps up and just says, like, okay, yeah, we're part of the hipster mafia, fair enough, that's what we're doing. But the bigger question is, what are you going to do to stop us? And Harley pulls out a jug of milk. Not almond milk, not soy milk, just off the counter, normal ass whole milk. And everyone freezes up. They're like, wait, hold on now. I'm lactose intolerant. You can't do that, man. That's against the rule. And then she jumps onto one of the big guy's backs, forces the milk down his throat. Everyone's reacting in horror. And they're just like, okay, all right, we give, let's go. And then the big guy's like, oh, find me a bathroom stat. So they go up and down this little marketplace that's got a bunch of tents and stuff set up. Apparently, it's got some good exotic food. Quinn questions, hey, maybe I should have my parents, they own an Indian restaurant. Maybe they should set up a thing here. And they talk about that briefly. But then all of a sudden, Quinn is saying, well, at least we don't need to worry about those hipster wannabes anymore. To which Harley snaps back saying, hey, be careful who you call them wannabes. All of you are dressed exactly like me and using my branding. And they're like, okay, ouch. I thought it was because of the team thing. Like, also, we got the redesigns from matching your colors directly to each of us having our own color code. And Harley's like, well, one day I might not be around. I might be brought up to the big leagues. I'm the fourth pillar of the DC universe, after all. She doesn't say that, but she may as well. And after eating some of the exotic food at the tent, she has to go take a crap. So she goes off to a porta potty. The other gang of Harleys, all of them start infighting a little bit, saying how, well, oh, she was talking about the rest of you. I've got my own identity, yada, yada. And as they're doing this, Coach comes up and just like, look, she always just says stuff off the top of her head. She probably didn't mean it. Like, no big deal. And then they call out Coach of like, well, you're the only one here who doesn't have a Harley motif. How do you get away with that one? She's like, because I'm the blind and in a wheelchair motif. Anybody want to trade? So they wonder, Harley's been in the bathroom for a while. They go knock on the door. Turns out it's unlocked. And as they enter, she's not in there. And immediately they turn around. There's another hipster guy there. And they're like, oh, a leftover. It must be him. And he's just like, I don't know anything about that. I don't know what to say. So Coach gets a call on her phone. It's a FaceTime from Harley. She's been tied up. She's like saying, guys, this isn't funny. I still got to go. And then some shadowy figures come up and saying, oh, it's a kidnapping. We've got your precious little Harley here. And just know, we just want you to know that we have her. And you shouldn't go to the cops or else she'll pay the price. And we'll be in touch soon enough. So everyone loads back up into the Harley van, and they're like, all right, well, at least we know she's safe, but we still got to find her. And there's a shadowy figure watching from the rooftops nearby. So everyone returns back to the base of operations. They question what they should do, get the police, get the JLA, and Tony, who's one of Harley's helpers, steps up and says, she'd want us to handle this in-house. We should figure out who's after her and start trying to figure that out. And they say how many enemies she's made over the course of her own book. They question whether or not it's the Joker. Everyone says they're going to bail if it's the Joker, and Tony's like, don't worry, it's not the Joker. This doesn't have his level of style. You guys need to go out and like figure this out. Scooby-Doo gang. So everyone goes out, and we see that they just don't even care about finding Harley. Like, they're going to pizza joints and clubs. They go to visit the zoo for a little bit, a baseball game, and everyone's like, well, you know, she could be here. She does enjoy going to a baseball game after all. So after they search for a while, we then see Harley is once again screaming about how she wants to get the hell out of here. And she's FaceTiming with Tony and the rest of her other gang. And they're saying, hey, yeah, look, we're trying. We sent them on the path, but like they're still working on it. These things take time. And it turns out this entire thing was just Harley's plan to try to make sure that her gang of Harleys were able to operate on their own, that they didn't need her constantly there to guide them in the proper direction. However, as they're discussing this, we see there's a listening device in the room that Coach planted. And so Coach tells the rest of the actual gang of Harleys, yeah, it was all a bit. They were just testing us. The Harley's not actually in trouble. So when Tony re-enters the room, he's like, guys, we just got some new information. They're like, shove it. You lied to us. We know you lied to us. All that. And he's just like, okay, fine, fair enough. I'm not going to hide it. But blame Harley. This was all her idea. She just wanted to make sure you were fine. But then all of their phones suddenly cut to static, and they start binging off a sound saying, everyone, please answer your devices now. And as everyone looks at their devices, each of them sees something that is near and dear to them. Each of them sees something that, like, is part of their own lives, and it seems to be a creep shot photo taken from a distance. And the rest of the phone is like, all right, well, you can see that we've taken these images, and everyone looks at Tony like, Tony, what is this? Are you seriously continuing the act? And he's like, no, this isn't me. We barely figured out how to work FaceTime. We don't know how to do any of this stuff. And when the camera comes back on for Harley, where she should have been tied up, instead are some empty ropes and the chair being knocked over. And next to it, we see a bloodied and beaten Harley. And the voice says, oh, I'm not Harley, not by a long shot. And they say, oh, my God, well, who are you? And he's like, oh, you're right. Where are my manners? Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Harley Sin. And you got, it's like a Dio de los Muertos face and the Harley kind of get up. Just, yeah. Harley Sin. That's the villain. Look, if you've been following any sort of the Harley Quinn books, or especially me talking about them, you know that this just ain't my style. I don't care. I understand. She's the fourth pillar. I understand we're going to push her until she breaks. But, like, I just don't care. Like, you've taken literally one of the most boring parts of her series, which is this Gang of Harley concept, and you're like, yeah, let's make a whole series about that. Let's flesh that out some more. And they even point out in this book how completely in over their heads they are. And, like, fine, if you want to make a story out of that, so be it, but you don't make me care about the characters. Literally, the only reason I know their characters is because there is an entire 2-page layout listing off all of their names and characteristics. That's not how you get me to care about a character. That's how you get me to know that a character exists, which is significantly different. So, I mean, look, in the ability of making comics, it's competently made. I don't have a problem with anything that's doing from like a structure or a storytelling perspective. I just think the concept overall should not have existed. So, how do I get past that? I give it a 6. I recognize the quality, I just don't care. Constantine, the Hellblazer, number 11, written by Ming, Doyle, and James Tynion IV, art by Foreman. So, last issue, Constantine just says, screw New York, it's gonna fall, I can't do anything about it. And then, whatever the boyfriend's name is, Oliver, he goes off to find Constantine and leaves the kids unknowingly in the hands of a demon. So, this issue picks up with Constantine seemingly out in the middle of a desert somewhere, and he's just saying, like, the sun sucks. I don't know why people like the light so much. They're convinced that in the light you can't, like, get hurt or anything like that. Like, it's safer than the dark, but in the light you can see all the dirt and the grime and all that. At least at night, you know that you should be, like, defensive. Like, the light sucks. And that just kind of rolls into this natural monologue he has about how much he hates LA. And we see he's in Hollywood. He's literally looking at the Hollywood sign, and he's marching his way through this sandy hill and saying, like, yeah, people act like this place is so much better than New York, and like they've got it all figured out here. There's this smugness to LA, and I just hate it. It's so shoved up its own ass. And like, he basically just says, like, no one has it figured out, blah, blah, blah. So as he walks his way into this giant pool house that has, like, there's a moat and all these people gathered around, all super attractive, he comes up to a bouncer and he's like, oh, sir, can I have your name? And he's like, nope. And he's like, well, I can't let you in. And he's like, I'm going to ask you to piss off. And he casts a spell on the guy to mesmerize him. He walks into the party, steals a little champagne flute. Someone's like, looks at him, and he's a mess. He's covered in dirt and grime and all this stuff. He's like, oh, well, you sure do look interesting. And he's like, I don't recognize whatever Tubi original you're from, and I don't care to find out. And he just walks his way out. Inside of his eye, though, however, we see a specific character, a little ghosty looking character pops up in his iris. So Constantine walks in a little bit deeper, and he's like, all right, I'm one who's in charge. Gabriel, show yourself. And in just appears the angel Gabriel, and he's like, John, calm down, it's a party, have another drink. And Constantine's like, look, I just want to chat with an old friend, what's the problem with that? He's like, we're not friends, you suck, you're the worst, like, I don't want you around here at all. And he's like, well, too bad. And he lights up a cigarette, and every time he exhales, Constantine just blows it in Gabriel's face, and Gabriel just goes a little and that's throughout the whole thing. So we see that they step aside, they step out on the balcony, and Constantine's basically just telling Gabriel, like, look, I just broke into this place. I'm just a normal person, and I just broke all the angelic protections that you put up around it. I'm just here to give you a warning that New York is being overrun, and they will not stop there, because all of the people that set up their base in New York are going to be forced out by the demons, and they're going to come to the other major city in America, LA. They're going to make their way over here. So just know that that's happening. It's going to be this whole thing. And Gabriel, he's just coughing every once in a while, and he's just like, look, there's a magic to LA, okay? And I am the protector of that magic. I am the one that makes sure that this place is not sullied by lesser beings or anything like that. He literally says, this city's magic is closely guarded. Can you imagine if the demons got their hand on the film industry? Oh no, what are the odds? But yeah, he's basically saying, like, I'm not good. Whoever you think is going to, like, this exodus that's coming over here to LA, I'm not going to let it happen. I'm not having this place sullied by lesser beings. And Constantine's like, well, where do you expect them to go? He's like, I don't know, Portland? Sounds like a nice time this time of year. But as Constantine turns to leave, he's like, it's interesting, though. Why are you taking this selfless pose? Why are you doing this whole thing? I mean, I'm proud of you for doing it. And he's like, no. I just want a bloody place to live. I don't care about any of that. And he blows one last smoke cloud. And Constantine's just like, you don't even have lungs. You're just faking it. Shut up. So we cut over to Orange County. We're outside of some version of Disneyland, it seems like. And Constantine's just chilling with this gargoyle-looking thing named Bartleby. And he's like, look, Bartleby, I'm done. I'm out. And he's just like, no, you ain't. Nah. And Bartleby, apparently, because they're outside of Disneyland, like, there is this whole, like, sort of subculture that's been, migrating around. They've been trying to find their way into LA. But he's like, look, me and the others have been talking, and we're talking about setting up a permanent shop right here on the outskirts of the town, just outside the border. So, we're not going to wreck their party or anything like that, but things are actually pretty okay out here. It's more affordable than New York, at least here on the outskirts. And just like, all right, fine, whatever. West Coast way of life, so be it. And he's like, all right, well, you still have a horse in this race, don't you, Constantine? And Constantine sees he has a call from Oliver. He hangs up on it, and he's like, nope, I'm just going to wherever the most alcohol is. And so he finds a bar, but it's like, a West Coast, it's a Los Angeles bar where they serve some artisanal Mai Tais and stuff like that. And he's like, whatever, just load me up. We then see a woman approaches the bar, and Constantine tries to hit on her, and immediately the woman has a Boston accent. Turns out this is Boston Brand, aka Deadman, and he's like, hey, John, it's me, it's Deadman. How's it going? What you doing out here on the West Coast? Things are really crazy out in New York. You should probably be going to deal with that. And he's like, what, you think I haven't been working? I've been doing crazy stuff out here. He's just like, well, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing out here, it's not enough. You got to head back there, and you got to try to do something to stop Neron entirely. I will say I think there is a full-on art error in this book, because as Deadman is talking to Constantine, one of the speech bubbles is just directed for what should be Constantine is coming from the bartender instead, and Constantine's in the back just waving his arms around like crazy. I don't know what that's about, but I'm basically saying, look, we need you back in the fight back east. You got to get back over there. So, like, are you in? And he's just like, look, I'm trying to work the angles with the Angels of Los Angeles right now. I'm doing my best. And he's like, well, if it's not working, you got to get back out there. Like, we don't have time to waste. So Boston buys him a big goofy looking Mai Tai in a tiki cup. And he's like, what we need is clever little bastard like you to get out there. So what do you say? Ready to get back to the big apple, the big rotten apple? And John downs the Mai Tai and says, nope. And he heads to the door. And Deadman's like, well, hold on. I'm asking nicely, but I can make you do it. And Constantine's like, I've got like 15 spells to stop you from being able to take over my body. There's no way you can get past that. And he's like, but I know how to get you to drop that guard. And using the woman's body, he just starts making out with Constantine, enough to get Constantine to drop his guard, and Deadman just leaps into his body. It's not a full takeover. Constantine is still fighting back every step of the way, but he is able to control the body enough to go out, hail a cab, tell the cab to go to LAX. The whole time, John's like punching himself in the face, trying to get him to stop. He gets to the airport. gets a flight to LaGuardia, takes off in an hour. As they're in the waiting, he just keeps on punching himself in the face. Other people are like, okay, stay away from the crazy man. And as he gets himself onto the plane, and the plane finally takes off, he's like, ah, damn it. So dead man hops out of the body somewhere in the middle of the flight, hops into the woman sitting next to him's body who was asleep, and just like, there, now we can have a little chat without being cozy. He's like, chat? No, you just like made me do something I didn't want to do, and you took over my body. We may have been okay before, like allies, but now we're enemies. Like, I'm not cool with you anymore. He's like, oh, all right, come on, you can get over it. It's no big deal. Why are you pretending you don't care what happens to New York? We all know that you've got some money in that. He's like, no, I don't care. I'm just trying to help myself. Neron is bad for business around the globe. I don't want him to take over, but like, I don't care about New York specifically. And when Deadman tries to push him a little bit more, saying like, come on, you're a bit of a hero, he's like, no, I'm not. In fact, I was convincing you that I like wanted you out of my body. I was mentally projecting that in order for us to have a face-to-face talk, when in actuality, I just need you out of my body so I could do this. And he casts a little spell using some peanuts on his tray, and then poop, the dead man, like the whole body disappears. Whoever Deadman was in is now no longer on this plane. So when he gets back to New York, he tries to book another flight, but wouldn't you know it, it's a whole nother day until the next LA flight needs to go out. So he's like, whatever, I may as well sleep in my own bed, have some actual real alcohol. And as he's making his way back, he gets to his door, and Oliver's just sitting there freaking out, sobbing on the ground. He's like, John, where have you been? I've been calling you constantly. They took my girls. They took my daughters to hell, and you're the only one who can get them back. So, yeah. Big stuff happening. I like it. It's weird because it is such like a sidestep. Like, we were doing so much of the stuff of New York and like trying to nail that down and all that stuff. This feels so much like, okay, now we're just doing this entirely separate thing over to LA. But I appreciate the message that's being sent there, because this has always been about like the location, the city itself. And I appreciate the fact that we cut over to this other major metropolitan area and say, yeah, no, it's got its own type of magic. It's got its own stuff going on that is unaffected by this, but only in the way that it's unaffected in that it's not being directly affected. It will still feel the aftershocks, and Constantine's just trying to bail out wherever he possibly can. So no, it's a solid issue. I like the art on it. I think the only thing is that it feels like when all is said and done, it was just to point out that there is no one else who's going to help, which I don't think I assumed there ever was going to be anyone else to help, even without him going to Los Angeles. It always felt like this was something that he had to shoulder on his own. So maybe it was just filling time. Maybe this was a genuine idea. Regardless, I didn't hate it. I thought it was a decent little distraction, even if it is just skippable for the most part. So yeah, I'm going to say... I'll say 7.5. I'm feeling that. It's not quite up to the 8 for me, but it's still good. It's still a very good issue. Catwoman number 51, written by Frank Tieri, art by Inaki Miranda. So this is picking up on what was the middle story from Catwoman number 50, following up on Black Mask's Mask, which apparently was called the Faceless Mask. So we open up with some news stories basically saying that Richard Sionis, a business magnate, blah, 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 he is on his deathbed. His son, Roman Sionis, is the crime boss, Black Mask, and how there's also been whispers that Richard Sionis has also been part of the weird secret societies and whatever else. And it looks like Catwoman's watching this on a smartwatch of some sort, and she's like, yep, it's all true. All that stuff is absolutely what happened, and I only regret that I never stuck it to Richard Sionis before he died. So we see that she's breaking in seemingly into his home. Inside of it, he is apparently a very wealthy mask collector, and he has this massive collection that's pretty much all just for show. It's for tourists and whatnot. The good things are all hidden in the background, and we see she scans this portrait of Richard and manages to activate a secret staircase. Then we cut back to several years prior, where Selena is with a man named David, and they are at a jewelry store, and they have Richard Sionis's super platinum credit card. And the guy behind this is like, oh, Mr. Sionis, would you like your super highly expensive diamond necklace gift wrapped, or will your wife be wearing it out? And he's just like, oh, I guess she'll be wearing it out. And they put it on her neck, and then they walk out, and then they start laughing, saying like, oh my God, I can't believe we did that. That's crazy. And like, they feel bad for a second, or at least Selina does. It's like, oh, you ever feel bad? Like, that guy's probably going to lose his job, and just like, yeah, well, survival of the fittest is what we got to do. And then they look at the credit card and they're like, oh, and that Richard Sionis, like, whoever that guy is, but hey, he's stupid if he gets his super premium credit card sent through the mail and doesn't follow up on it. So as they're wearing the diamonds out of the store and are walking down the street, we see that there's a man watching in a car who's wearing some sort of mask. So back over to modern day, and I'll call this out because it's absolutely insane. They have the V for Vendetta mask in one of the things. It's pretty front and center. But she's like, yeah, normally I'd be all over all this sort of stuff, but I'm here just for one thing today. And she makes her way down to the faceless mask, aka, I believe, Black Mask's mask. But then again, it might be something else entirely. So it says how cursed it is, all this other stuff here. And then there's whispering and voices from down the hall. Selina goes to hide. And in walks the False Face Society, a.k.a. a bunch of dudes wearing creepy-ass looking masks. And they are led by this new guy named White Mask. And he walks in and he's like, this mask will be the object that breaks our organization whole again. It's fantastic. It's what we must have. So Selina drops a tracking device on the guy and is like, look, I'll let him be anonymous for now, whoever this new player on the field is, but he took something I wanted, so I'm going to get it back. We then go down the street. We see that they're fencing the diamond necklace. And as they're talking to the guy there, he's just like, oh, yeah, so, I'll get you the money, blah, blah, blah. And before they can continue on with anything else here, all of a sudden, there's a car screeching. It pulls up to them on the side of the road. They go sprinting down an alleyway. They realize they're all blocked in. And David tries to put up a little bit of a fight. Then he gets the ever-loving shit kicked out of him. He is absolutely just down on the ground, boots to the head, and then out steps a man wearing a mask saying, oh, you think you can fight against us? What can you do? And Selina's, who's standing there off to the side, he approaches her just being like, oh, yes, Miss Kyle, I know both of your names. And then Selina just backhands him, knocks his mask clean off, and it's Richard Sionis. And he is like, well, like I said, I know both your names, but you don't know mine. I'm Richard Sionis, and you just took a lot of money from me. So we then show Selina. She's following the tracking device. She says how she's had a lot of run-ins with the False Face Society, but they've got their own inner turmoil and crazy stuff. Like, the Elder Sionis is more or less not a part of it. Roman Sionis and his father hate each other, and then the rest of the society's doing their own thing. So it looks like White Mask might be taking the charge on trying to reorganize things. So she makes her way to this cornfield. She comes across a tent in the middle of it, and she's like, all right, well, they're covering the front entrance, but that just means I can slice a hole in the back and peek inside. And so she does, and inside she sees this whole Eyes Wide Shut-esque, like, creepy masks and everything else going on. And White Mask steps up and says, oh, too long, this organization has been splintered up. We've all been following different people, but I have been chosen by the great Richard Sionis to heal us. We will be under one leadership now that I have the faceless mask here. And under my leadership, I will show my true face unto you, as is tradition. And he takes off the white mask and reveals it's David. And Selina's like, wait a minute, hold on. That's impossible. He's dead. What the hell's going on here? So we cut over to the hospital. We see Richard Sionis is in a significant amount of pain. A nurse comes in, injects something into his IV, and then Sionis takes a breath, and then he starts freaking out because when he looks up, turns out it's his son. It's Roman, he's wearing the black mask and literally the same getup from the Dark Knight of what the Joker wears when he comes in as a nurse. And Richard's just like, nurse, someone help me, save me. And Roman's like, that's not going to work now. And he's just like, look, we've had our issues, son. But I thought that now that I'm, dying? Yeah, I know. That's the whole reason I'm here. So I could be here for your dying breath. And he's like, yeah, that thing I injected into your IV should be killing you right about now. And then Richard just dies. So Roman pulls out, I guess, Richard's customary mask, something that he's familiar wearing, and he puts it on Richard's face, and he's like, look, it's time that the False Face Society was made whole again, but that's going to be under me. And as he walks out of the hospital room, we see that he's killed tons of nurses and patients all on the floor, and he's like, and if I have to get things a little messy, I'm cool with messy. That's the issue. I mean, it's good. I appreciate the issue. The issue itself is fine. It just feels, I don't know, weird in that it's going to have to be wrapped up next issue. That's the part that gets me. Like, we're on issue 51. The series ends at 52. What are we really going to be able to do here to wrap up not only all of this stuff about, the False Face Society and the different warring factions, also David's alive and all this stuff. It just feels like 52 is going to have to be like the end all be all. I don't know how we're going to wrap all that up. But no, I mean, I appreciate everything we did in this issue. We set up David as a character. We made it clear that he shouldn't be alive anymore. We set up some backstory with Richard Sionis, which I think is new to the Batgirl lore. Or not Batgirl, Catwoman. Why did I say Batgirl? I think it's new to her lore. I know she had stuff with Falcone. I don't think we've ever had anything with Sionis, but I do think there was some stuff with Black Mask. I don't know. Regardless, it does a good job of setting it up and getting us up to date as to where we need to be here. So yeah, I guess I'll say this one is I'll give it a 7.5. It feels good. It feels like a solid issue. I don't think I really want to complain too much about it. And honestly, I think any book that has this late of a start for a new arc can handle it, can like have something that feels somewhat satisfying for issue 52. I think it's going to be this one. It feels competently written in that way. Green Lantern Corps Edge of Oblivion number 4, written by Tom Taylor, art by Ardian, Syaf, and Aaron Kuder. So, last issue we had the whole gang got beaten up by whatever her name is. I'm sure it'll come back up in a little bit. The evil person who took their rings. We open up this issue with Kilowog and Guy in a cell, and Kilowog's just like, look, Guy, I know we've never seen eye to eye. We've had our disagreements, our arguments, and like, you know, you're kind of a dick all the time, but this time you were right. I don't agree with you leaving defenseless people to die just because we don't know them. That's a bit weird and out of character for you, but we definitely went in here a bit too gung-ho, and it's cost us dearly. So I'm glad that you could sit here and listen to all this. And then we cut to a guy who's got a gag in his mouth, and he's just like, and Kilowog's just like, yeah, this is the best conversation we've ever had. So we then cut over to the empath who's talking to 2-6. And Marniel, that's the name of the evil one. It's just like, hey, 2-6, you good? And I can sense there's something wrong with you. And she's like, no, I'm not good. Everything sucks. We're all injured. I mean, I'll be okay in general, but like, this is awful for us. So we cut back up to the top surface, and John is trying to get a lock on them, on all the missing lanterns, but the rings have effectively just disappeared. And that's where Cyril, I'm just going to say that as a name, with one of the big tall people is just like, oh, Marniel's taking them captive. That's what it is now. So effectively they're dead. So then we cut down to Marniel, who is using the rings as John's calling in, being like, oh, well, they can't make it to the phone right now. Ha 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 ha. And John's like, oh, who is this? And of course it's Marniel. They immediately know that. And John's basically saying, look, I need to know that they're safe. You need to let me talk to them. And Marniel's like, look, any more action against my people, I will kill them instantly. But sure, you can talk to any of them except for the irritating one, because he's got a gag in his mouth. And Selak's like, which one's the irritating one? And John's like, of course it's Guy. Come on. So Kilowog, as soon as he gets the phone, as soon as he gets the ring, it's just like, don't listen to Marniel. Don't worry about us. Come tear her to pieces, ruin their entire day. And Marniel just unleashes a bunch of constructs to take Kilowog out. Simon, who's down there, is reacting harshly to seeing Kilowog being taken out. And as Marniel's about to launch another stand, 2-6 stands up and says, hey, no, stop. Stop this. And then she gets blasted back as well. and seemingly gets like heavily injured. She's okay, she's alive, but it seems like she's not got very long there. So Simon steps up, is about to square off. His tattoo on his arm, the Arabic script, starts glowing green, implying that maybe he doesn't need his ring, but nothing comes of it because Marniel's just like, look, Dismas and Osris, that's their names, they have sent their agents here before. They've tried to attack my people. Like, it's of course I'm going to take you guys out. And Kilowog's like, you attacked us first. You killed 3 of our friends. You're a coward. And Marniel's like, well, I'm the last of my race. So is that, you think I got that by being cowardly? And Kilowog's like, I know what it takes to be last of a race. And he's like, oh, cool. Then you should know exactly why I'm doing this and how strong I truly am. Like, basically just saying, look, you speaking of weaknesses and you're just watching all of this unfold and you're not doing anything. Like, that's real weakness here. At least I'm doing something with your power. And then the empath steps up and starts morphing into Marniel, starts feeling her emotions, and just be like, whoa, hold on. Something's wrong. You actually are a complicated person. You're not just a one-note villain. It's just like, oh, you're an empath? Cool. Tell my story. Like, tell everyone what you see. And the empath is just like, oh my god, holy shit, we were wrong. Guys, we were really, really wrong about everything. And we get this 2-page layout of Marniel's people originally figured out that the universe was going to die, like, thousands of years ago, and so they contacted a living planet in order to help host a last city. They bust that thing around the universe saying, hey, we're going to try to find a way out of this. Don't worry about it. Like, everyone hop on. You're going to be safe. One by one, the rest of her people died, but she continued living. And then one day they came across a planet with Osris and Dismas, and they pretended like they were all cool, but eventually the living planet also ended up more or less dying. It was withering away, and Osris and Dismas used their political savvy and possible persuasion powers to convince everyone that Marniel was the one responsible and to cast her down underneath the planet, along with everyone else that was too strong-willed to go under her or under their clutches or whatever. So then we cut over to Osris and Dismas is still recovering from his injuries or whatnot. Osris shows up and just like, hey, a couple of the Lancers got taken. Marniel's got them. I've kept a few for ourselves here. They're a distraction. They'll fight until we leave this universe and go on to the next. And then she opens up a crate with a bunch of things inside, like living sentient creatures. They're talking, but like, I don't know, they look like pets. And Dismas gets up from his chair and he's just like, hey, you guys are going to help me. They're like, of course, we'll do whatever we can to help you. And then he just unhinges his jaw and devours them with these weird, thorny looking teeth that just zap them of their life energy. So, yeah, apparently, according to the narration, they are monsters that existed from before this current universe, and they are looking for a way out of this universe as well. They are succubi and incubi, and they are also called in this the Blackest Nights, Knight. So Marniel's like, yep, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's I regardless of whether or not the last city finds a way out, which, like, yeah, I want to save all the people here. We cannot let Osris and Dismas into the next universe because, like I said, they existed in the prior universe. They keep on moving forward and they will drain all of the life in the next one as well. It's all their fault. And they're like, all the Green Lantern Corps is like, okay, cool. No, like, you told us the story. We understand it. Yeah, we're all in. So Marniel returns everybody's rings, and Guy, who still has that gag on him, starts freaking out when he gets his ring back. He immediately breaks his rope and just bolts up to the top of the cave that they're in. And the moment he gets out into the top side, he breaks off his gag and calls over to John saying, John, they're coming for you. And John responds. He tries to get more information, but Kilowog and everyone else drags him down as he's yelling out, oh, they're coming for Osris and Dismas. Protect them. You have to protect them. And Marniel ends up taking Guy's rings back. And everyone's like, what the hell did Guy just do? He just betrayed everybody. What's up? And she's like, yeah, no, they have persuasion powers. Like, they have the ability to control people's minds. He's had his mind burrowed into, probably all your friends on topside have this too. We're going to have to actually fight through them. You can't trust your friends to be your friends right now. And the little core group that we got here are like, all right, fair enough, let's go. That's the issue. I mean, it's exactly what I thought it was. That's the thing. I think I said first issue when we met Osris and Dismas, I'm like, they're probably not evil. And then wouldn't you know it, of course they were. I'm not going to hold that against the book. Like, that's just genre savvy. That's just turns out the person named Dismas might be evil. Like, that's like saying Sinestro might be sinister. Yeah, no shit. Beyond that, it's a fine issue. It's just backstory, just like pivoting up. Okay, next issue we're going to have them having to fight through the Green Lantern Corps up top and trying to convince other people. End of issue will be they finally managed to break through, but then, it's too late. And then final issue is just dealing with the end of the universe. It's easy to see this mapped out. That doesn't make it a bad story. It's just by the numbers. So, I mean, I like the art. I like the characterization of like Kilowog and like the empath, even though, God, if you have me try to remember her name at all, I'm not going to get it there. I think my biggest problem I have with it is Guy's characterization, and I've said that since issue 1, where the entire previous miniseries was all about him saying, like, no, we need to save as many people as possible, and then this one shows up where he's like, nah, let them burn. What do they ever do for us? And I'm like, I don't think that's Guy, but whatever. I'll just say a 7. It's a backstory issue. It's a setup for the future, and honestly, it wasn't like a massive twist either. I will say the imagery that they have of like Dismas unhinging his jaw and having like these crazy thorn tendril things come out, that looked good. But again, art is great, so I don't really feel like that's a hat on a hat there. So 7 for this. We'll see how we wrap up the series. Black Canary number 10, written by Brenden Fletcher, art by Moritat and Sandy Jarrell. So last issue was kind of just a fill-in, but the issue before that, we had a whole thing of Black Canary's aunt being around. Vixen was around. They were looking for her mother, and someone named, I think it's like Gray Eyes, has a beef with them and is looking for this technique. It's a whole thing. So this issue picks up with Babs and Dinah just hanging out, I guess, in Babs' apartment, and they're looking over some of Black Canary's old footage from some of her concerts, showing how she just jumped out in the audience and beat up a couple guys. And Babs is apparently a super fan, and Dinah's just like, that's weird, because, like, you know me in person, and you know I'm not like that's all just for show. And Babs is like, oh yeah, I mean, it's just another side of you. Like, all the stuff we do has a little bit of showiness and performance in it. This is no different than any of that. And she keeps on trying to like taunt Dinah to like, yeah, you know, come on, get active, get up, whatever. And she's like, look, I just told you like all this crazy stuff about like my aunt showing up and my parents disappearing when I was young and all this sort of stuff. I'm not really in the mood or any of that. And Babs just, I guess, doesn't take a hint. She's just like, oh yeah, sure, whatever. And I will say, it's fixed in the trade. However, I read the single issue version of this, and they had an art issue where they swapped Babs and Dinah. So it looked like Dinah was just overly exuberantly happy, and Babs was like super emo for one panel. But yeah, Babs is just like, look, no, I get it. Like, you have all this stuff, and it's all of their previous traumas or whatever. What is it you want to do? And she's like, it makes me feel like I need to punch something. So they go out on the town, going on their superhero stuff, and just start taking out some random criminal that's doing something. Turns out his name is Mad Wax. He apparently is really into vinyl records, and as they are trying to stop him, they are throwing some discs at him, and Babs is about to throw this one, and Wax is like, hold on, that's an ultra rare printing of Texas Ghost that's mastered at half speed, don't break it. And Babs is like, I'll break it unless you surrender. And he's like, fine, all right, I surrender. Everyone, all my henchmen surrender, we're all good, we're all down. And Dinah's still going to beat the guy up, but Babs is like, no, let him, he's good, he's fine. So yeah, as they continue to talk off to the side, where it's like, all right, well, you've been through a lot of stuff here, what's going on with your aunt? And she explains all this stuff like, yeah, apparently she suckered me into joining a ninja death cult and all this sort of stuff. And just like, oh, that's weird. I didn't take you the type to be suckered into anything. It's like, yeah, it has something to do with my mom. She was in a martial arts group and all this other stuff. I don't know enough of what was going on, and I was looking for answers. Meanwhile, Mad Wax recognizes Dinah and is like, oh, you're Black Canary. Oh, can you sign my face? I've got a Sharpie in my pocket. So they get out of there, and Dinah and Babs get to talking. Babs is like, okay, look, I'll do whatever I can to help. Do you have like any memory, anything that I would have seen that I can go through my photographic memory and pull out for you? And he's like, well, there was the one time that you were visiting me back before you burned down my dojo. You would have seen a picture of my mom, and I think that they're like the rest of the group was in that photo as well. And so she goes back to her memory. She's like, oh, yeah, I can see the photo. And also the writing of the names through the back of the photo as well. And she lists off a few names. And one of them is Sandra McCandless, which is apparently the name of Vixen's manager. And she's like, oh, yeah, that's the whole thing. And two of the other names were assassinated just in the last few months. We got to check out the last name on there, which is Judy Slade. I'll put Frankie on it. Frankie being one of Babs' people. But they also figure out, all right, well, we've got other places we can look. So turns out the photo was taken in a place called Lodger Studios. It's in Burnside. They go to visit and they say like, oh yeah, recently got bought out, yada yada. That's a lot of security we had to jump through. And Babs is just super eager to like play on the drums and stuff like that. But Black Canary is a bit more reserved. She starts looking through, and they make their way back into the tape room, and they come across a photo of her mother as a dancer. And she's like, why would my mom, who's into jujitsu and stuff like that, become a dancer? That's crazy. And as they dig a bit more, they come across the name of a guy named Isaac Orato. And it's like, all right, well, his name's on a box of old tapes in the corner. Let's start listening through some of that. And as they're listening through it, all of a sudden they hear her mom's name. Or no, they hear her on the tape, and Canary is like looking through stuff and old photos. She's like, yeah, turns out my mom danced in a bunch of his music videos. I don't understand it. So as they turn it on and they hear her voice, she's saying something like, oh, you think you and your private dick husband, this is Isaac talking, are gonna get away with this, my little Dinah? And basically it's just threatening, just saying like, yeah, well, you know what, I don't think that you're gonna, and then the tape goes out. So they don't have a lot to go off of, but they know that Isaac has something against Dinah's mom because Dinah's dad was a private investigator, and they're starting to put all this together here. And it's so much of just exposition dumps. I don't know what in this is going to be important, but regardless, Frankie calls up and says, hey, Judy Slade was murdered 20 years ago. It was a cold case. They never got it figured out. And apparently it looks like the life was sucked right out of her. And then a bunch of ninjas start attacking, and it turns out this is the ninja death cult from before. They're looking for a technique called the Five Heavens Palm that apparently Dinah's mom knew, so they assume Dinah knows it as well. And she's like, yeah, I have no idea what it is. They're not going to believe me that I don't, so whatever. So turns out Babs planted a bomb in the room like that they broke into, so she fires that, distracts them, and then they all leap in and start fighting. Eventually, I think it's Gray Eyes, whatever the other one's name is, Gray Eyes manages to get her hands on Babs. She has electricity powers, so she just zaps Babs, knocks her out, and basically says, look, I've got Batgirl here. I can kill her in an instant. There's nothing you can do to stop me unless you tell me the technique. So what's up? You ready to go? And she's just like, okay, but I'll only show it to you. All of your henchmen need to leave. And she's like, fine. Henchmen, take Batgirl away. Listen for my orders. If I say to kill her, you kill her immediately. And that's to make sure Black Canary goes along with the plan. So as everyone's leaving the room, just like, what do you got against me, Gray Eyes? You don't even know me. And it's like, but your mother, like, I am subservient to this woman, this person, and the headmistress, I call her. She was injured because of your Five Heavenly Palm technique, your mom's Five Heavenly Palm technique. The only way to restore her back to life is via the same technique. So I'm doing this for her benefit. And just like, all right, well, sure. And then Dinah just does a move. She's just like, that. And immediately Graz is like, that was this completely other separate move. That wasn't what you kill Batgirl, kill her now. And Dinah does her canary cry and knocks Gray Eyes on her ass. And Graz is like, why aren't you going to say Batgirl? Like, I thought you'd be more concerned about her. But then Batgirl walks in being like, because she knows I can handle myself, you prick. So immediately another fight breaks out, but then Dinah's like, hold on, you keep using your electric powers, I keep using my canary cry. If you think you're so much of my equal, my match in terms of kung fu, let's test it. I bet I can kick your ass without any special powers if you do the same. And she's like, fair enough. So they start fighting, and immediately Dinah just drops her, like 1 page later, no problem. So she basically says, she repeats all this stuff before of like, no, I need to get the powers. It left her broken. I need the technique to be whole again. And if I don't get it from you, then my life is worth nothing. And she starts overcharging on energy. She's holding on to Dinah's leg. Batgirl manages to grab her and get her out as the whole place goes up in flame. So Batgirl's like, okay, so what? She wanted you for kung fu. She was willing to kill herself for that. And it's like, yeah, apparently this is about a headmistress Ravanahatha. Sure. And apparently she's going to know something about the mom. And Batgirl at this point chimes up saying like, hey, about this Ant character, over in my book, I recently had a random person show up who said they were from my past, but I didn't recognize them. I'm just going to go ahead and say your aunt sounds like bad news, Dinah. And she's like, yeah. So they get back to their place, and Dinah and her sneak in. Frankie's there waiting, saying, hey, look, you wanted me to look up on that Judy Slade stuff. That can wait. I got something bigger now. Black Canary, where's your band? And they're like, oh, I ditched them. Last time we dealt with them, I didn't tell them where I was going, so that way they would stay safe. And he's like, yeah, cool. Turns out they're in Germany, and they are working at a club. They're doing a performance under Isaac Arado, which means they're now involved in this. And she's like, well, everything else is going to have to wait. My band needs me, and I need answers. So, yeah, yeah, it's a lot. Look, I appreciate they fixed it for the trade, but like, I feel like that art mistake of like all of a sudden Dinah is all cheerful and happy and Barbara's storming out angry, like that's just kind of indicative of how this issue feels so rushed. It feels so much like it's not part of the story. I don't know what happened, but because we had a fill-in last week, I have to assume that Brenden Fletcher was under the assumption that he'd have more issues than he did. And so we already had stuff pre-written, art already pre-mapped out. And then last issue, he was told, you need to wrap it up. You're only going to go up to 12. And he's like, I need to change significant things then. And then we had to have a fill-in to fill in that space. We had to have someone else come in for the art on that and just say like, all right, that's happening there. And now we're going to readjust the story so it only takes 3 issues. Do I think that's good? No. It's almost indicative of how this issue feels so rushed. It feels so heavily on the exposition and like nothing particularly happens. We just wrap up this villain that was set up in the first issue as if it were nothing. I appreciate the effort. I don't think it worked out. I think this one is probably... Honestly, it feels like a 5.5 to me. It's so weak. It just doesn't feel like a well-written issue, and it's overly wordy. There's so much going on. I understand by necessity it might need to exist, but it's just not a good issue. So, if anything, I would almost say skip this and probably just move on to 11. I don't think there's anything here that really requires that much information. It just feels like a useless issue to me. Earth 2 Society number 11, written by Dan Abnett, art by Federico Dallocchio. So, yeah, last issue we got a whole bunch of stuff in terms of the Batman plot where they're trying to investigate this power source, and then Hourman showed up and started kicking Batman's ass. And then over on the other side, it's everyone trying to stop the war from happening over resources that it turns out aren't actually even there, but nobody else knows that. So... we open up this issue with Red Arrow and Ted Grant storming in because Batman's getting his ass handed to him by Hourman. However, as they storm in, our man has been defeated. He's at least in a chair and like non-responsive. And Batman, despite still being conscious, is bloodied as hell. And they're like, what happened, man? How did you manage to take on our man? And he's like, it took a lot out of me, but like, I'm Batman. And it's like, yes, of course you're Batman. Sure thing. And he's like, look, I'll explain later. Nimbus, the guy in charge of all this, he's a meta, he's escaping, you're gonna have to go through it. He can turn into a mist, he can be intangible, okay? Also, he might be able to control minds, be careful about that. And it's like, oh great, yeah, that's fine for a guy with an arrow and Ted Grant. So as they go off, Batman turns over to Tyler, aka Our Man, and he's like, hey, snap out of it, need you to pay attention here, we need to be able to take out Nimbus. And he snaps out like, oh Jesus, man, what did you do to me? And he's like, look, your powers operate off of Miraclo. It's a drug, takes 1 hour, and you basically become a god during it. However, I re-engineered Miraclo and made an anti-Miraclo that burns you out in just a matter of seconds rather than a matter of an hour, because I knew we'd meet again and I needed to be ready. However, I tagged you at the beginning of the fight and expected it to only take a few seconds, but it took a few minutes instead, which is why my ass was summarily handed to me here. I think that's because you were being dosed by Nimbus, and he's making you do things that you normally wouldn't already do. He's lacing your Miraclo. So stop working with these guys. They're all awful people. I want you to work with me instead of people who manipulate you. And Tyler's just like, sounds like you're trying to manipulate me. He's like, no, I'm not. I'm just trying to help you and help New Gotham. So we follow Red Arrow and Ted. They go down trying to fight Nimbus, and it's not going well because Nimbus is just like, who the hell are you guys? Batman's little helpers? You're pathetic. And he's just turning into a mist and then solidifying just long enough to punch him. So then we go over to Neotropolis, where Green Lantern has tried to call a face-to-face meeting between the leaders of two of the warring factions, Erebus and Arkhome. And we see Sandman, Commander Steel, and Sato are all like, this is a bad idea. This isn't going to work out here. And Sandman is the most nihilistic of them all, just being like, they're fighting for basic survival. It's only going to get worse. Talking's not going to be able to fix it. I think we need to activate Security Protocol 12. And they're like, nah, no way. It would send us back to the Dark Ages. Like, it's a whole thing. And he basically is saying, like, look, Green Lantern is... He has the powers of a god. Theoretically, he can do whatever. But he also has this moral code that if anyone stands up to him and says no, he doesn't have the balls to do anything about that. He will respect their decision, and like, he could just blink them out of existence, but he won't. And so if somebody comes up and says, no, sorry, not going to do what you want to do, what is he supposed to do about that? So we go over to neutral territory where Green Lantern has built this entire giant green temple, saying like, oh, hello, welcome, glad to have you here so you can talk about this sort of stuff here. And they're like, oh, what is this? You're meaning to intimidate us, show how much power you have so that we'll back down and do anything you want to say? He's like, what? No, I thought you'd like to have a nice place to talk. Like, that's all it is. And there's a couple of the other wonders there. Flash is there, Power Girl, Huntress. And he's just like, yeah, you want us to kneel down before you wonders and you people and pray that you don't destroy us or whatever like that? And both of the senators, both these people who are in charge of their countries are just like, look, we disagree on a lot of stuff, me and this other guy, but like, we agree on the fact that this is a horrific display of strength that you're doing here. He's like, I swear to God, I'm not meaning to. Like, this is not trying to be that at all. So Green Lantern tries to continue on. He's just like, look, I brought you here. We don't need a war on this new Earth, all this stuff. And then it's like, no, you told us you want us here to tell us not to fight. Like, that's what you want here. And then they say, like, I've got these populations. We're fighting over resources just to be able to survive. And what, you would expect me to go back and tell them that we're not going to fight for that we're not going to try to survive because some guy in a mask says so? And he's like, look, I'm just asking you both, like, for unity. I want us to have a united world where there are free elections. And they're just like, great, okay, we'll have a world with free elections as we all starve to death. Is that what you want? Is that what you want out of this? Like, what is that going to do anything for? And Green Lantern's like, well, what will a war do for you? Like, there's not actually any resources down there. You'd be fighting over nothing. And Red Tornado, Lois is there, is also like, Jesus, man, you weren't supposed to tell him that part. And they're like, there's no resource. Okay, so literally only the things that we have in our city right now is all we have. Like, we're going to have to be fighting over that. That means basically full-scale war instead of just protracted for resources war. We're going to have to invade each other. Okay. Well, thanks, Green Lantern. Thanks for telling us that. So now we have no choice but to do that. And Green Lantern's just like gobsmacked. He has no idea what's going on. And the senators basically turn to each other and like, look, for what it's worth, I'm genuinely sorry for what I'm going to have to do, but I have to fight for my people. And he's just like, yeah, no, same. Like, we're going to be invading and we're going to be doing this. And they both turn back to Green Lantern just being like, just know that you guys, you Wonders, are the ones that lost our original world. All the blood that's about to be spilled is on your hands. And they just walk out. And Flash is like, well, that could have gone worse. And he's just like, how? And he's like, I don't know. I thought if I said it, somebody be able to find a way that it could have gone worse. So then we cut over to the Hawkgirl and Fury story. And, you know, there's a deal going on between the Amazonians and the Atlanteans. And Fury basically explains, yeah, we formed an alliance. We want to share our experience of the ancient cultures with the world and all that. Because, yeah, they're messed up. The people are messed up down there. We're going to do that. And Hawkgirl's like, so why have you been hidden? Like, all this stuff is so secretive, all this sort of stuff there. It's like, because normal people fear us. They hate us. They don't want anything to do with us. We're too powerful for them. It's all that stuff. And Fury walks over to this box and says, hey, I want to tell you this. This is called the Pandora Vessel. When it was obvious that we were not going to make it, when the world was going to end, I went to all of the Amazonians, all the ones that were left, and I took all of their memories and their beings and I put it into this box with the promise that one day we would be able to breed a new race of Amazons. There would be a new culture that we could then re-embody all of these souls and memories with, and they would continue on the Amazonian people as if nothing had even changed. But when we hopped in our ship and we came to Earth 2, it didn't work. We crashed, and everyone on board of this ship that was supposed to be like, you know, the next peoples here, they all got hit with a lethal dose of radiation, and they were all going to die. And so I had to make the judgment call to open up Pandora's box and unleash the souls onto all of these people, effectively making a new race of Amazons, but they're only doing it to save these people who otherwise would have died by radiation poisoning. Their life force is now sustaining them. So, yeah, I took the legacy of all my lost sisters and I sacrificed any future hope of having them be whole again just in order to save the people on that ship. That's what I'm willing to do for this planet in order to make sure it survives. So don't you question my motives here, Hawkgirl. So let me go over to Batman, who's still trying to get in contact with Ted Grant and Red Arrow. And he's like, hey, you guys good? You captured Nimbus? And Nimbus is still just beating the ever-loving crap out of them. Red Arrow gets knocked off to the side as Nimbus continues to say how sorry they are, how pathetic they are. But Ted Grant just keeps tanking hits, and Nimbus keeps on punching him in the face. It's like he's not even trying to fight back. And Ted's like, yeah, well, I can soak it up like the best of them. I got years of conditioning in the ring. Even if you're enhanced strength, I can tank it all. And Nimbus just keeps on punching, keeps on going. And he's like, to do what? What could you use? So you take a bunch of hits, and I'm still all here. Like, what's the problem like that? And Ted says, because every time you take a hit, you have to turn solid. And then Red Arrow shoots Nimbus in the back when he's not looking, knocks him out with an electrified arrow, and he's down. So we then cut over to Alain, who's talking with Steel, Sato, and Sandman. And they're just like, you screwed up. You screwed up too badly here. This is we are now looking at a global war scenario. Everyone is going to be invading everybody else. We don't have any other options because you have insisted on trying to do things your way. So the only option is Security Protocol 12. And he's like, I'm not going to let you do that. That's not the way we do things here. And he's like, well, Sato's like, we have to do it. Otherwise, we're looking at a massive worldwide death toll. At the very least, we can impose control and fight for peace. Like, it sounds stupid, but it's the only option we have here. And Green Lantern's like, no, absolutely not. We're not going to kill to stop the killing. And they all just walk away and say, sorry, man, you had your chance. We're taking over here while there's still something left to save. And that's the issue. I like it. I think it's solid. I like Ted Grant, Red Arrow, like that whole side of things over there. It's very clever the way they handle that. I don't know how I feel about the Fury thing, only because I don't fully understand what the original plan was. The idea that she kept all the souls and memories or whatever of the Amazonians inside of this box, and then eventually she was going to open it back up, but not this, like, this wasn't the way it was supposed to happen, and somehow, like, it's a negative. I mean, I guess with, you know, all these people, their innocent lives were going to die anyway. It feels like a mercy killing in a sort of way, but I don't know. I can't place the morals on that. That one feels a bit more weird to me. Also, it doesn't mention the Atlanteans at all. No idea how that happened. But regardless, as for the main plot, I mean, I like the subterfuge. I like the politics of it. The fact of, like, yeah, no, this is how people would react. Like, everyone's going to be fighting for their own, and they'll kill whoever they have to in order to survive. It sucks, but I see where this story comes out of. So, yeah, I like this one. I think I'll give it an 8. I think it's a solid issue, which leaves a lot wanting of, like, what is the Security Protocol 12? They're talking about it sending them back to the Dark Ages. Is it just a matter of, like, they take fascist control of the planet and the Wonders are just imposing martial law? Like, is that it? Because it sounds a lot bigger than that, but even if it was just that, that's a big deal. So we'll see what happens next time, but this one's definitely an 8. Gotham Academy number 17, written by Brendan Fletcher, art by Adam Archer, or rather, that is the framing device, because we are still continuing on the yearbook anthology-style storytelling of what's going on here. So last issue, Robin broke in and stole Maps' yearbook, stole the scrapbook of what they were making here. This issue picks up with Maps finding out about it. Palm is telling her, and just like, what, you just let him take it? What is right? It has some sensitive information in it. And she's like, it was Robin from Batman and Robin. What was I supposed to do? And Maps sputters for a little bit, but Palm eventually just storms out. And Maps turns to Olive, just like, we've got to get it back. You don't understand, like, I wrote so much stuff in there that's, like, deeply private. Like, that time that Heathcliff came back and Pommeline had an actual emotion. And we cut to that story, which turns out is a semi-tie-in to Brendan Fletcher's other book, which is Black Canary. This is written by Brendan Fletcher, art by Annie Wu. And we see that Black Canary is doing some sort of music video at Gotham Academy, using it for the Gothic exterior. And Heathcliff is, of course, there. Who is Heathcliff, if you haven't been following the story? Turns out he was from Gotham Academy, to an extent. And so he sees the gang over off to the side. They're all flagging him down and waving and whatever else like that. And Canary is like, hey, why do those kids seem to know you? Didn't you graduate from this place years ago? And Heathcliff comes over and just like, hey guys, yeah, we're on a break right now, so what do you think? And Maps is like jumping for joy. It's like so cool, all that stuff. And he's like, hey, yeah, no, I'm not in the band. I'm just like the road manager. And also, I may have had to lie about my age and how long I've been out of school, so please don't bust me on that. And they're like, no, you're cool. But Olive pulls him aside and says, hey, we need to talk. You need to go see Pommeline, because they were previously dating before Heathcliff just got up and left and went on this thing. So it was all very sudden. And he's just like, look, you know how much I care about her, how much I love her and all that, but like, I don't know what even to say here. And Olive's is like, well, you owe her something. She was really hurt when you left. So he walks in, she's there reading some sort of book on the occult or something like that. And he's like, hey, Pom. And she's like, unless you are the reunion of the Smiths, I don't care. And he's just like, look, I'm sorry for all of it, like everything that happened, and that I'm bothering you now, like, goodbye. And so he starts to walk away, and she's like, hey, I saw Black Canary got in a fight during a press conference and you to take over. That was pretty cool. And he's like, oh yeah, no, it was totally awesome and all this stuff. And they start chatting a little bit, and he asks what the book's about. They reminisce about how they found a secret crypt way back in the day. So they head out to this graveyard outside of Gotham Academy, and as he's regaling with stories of things that happened in the Black Canary book, Pommeline's like, oh yeah, no, that all sounds like mysticism and magic and stuff like that. You should look into like this spell stuff or whatever. And he's like, oh yeah, no, I'll definitely do that. So they make their way over to this tree trunk that I guess had the secret crypt in it, and they start removing some boards there that were previously boarding it up. And Pommeline is like, so I guess you're hanging out with a bunch of groupies all the time, huh? And Heathcliff stops and he's like, Pommeline, I want you to follow me. And they go back to the place where the music video is being shot. He passes her a mixtape that was made by Lord Byron, someone else who's in the band, and just like, she signed it. It's not posted anywhere online, and it's just for you. And I know how much you like her music. And also, one other thing. And he straps on a guitar, hops on stage, and says, "Pomely and Fritch, I wrote this song for you." And Pom just gets so emotional and embarrassed that she runs away and runs back up into her room. But we see that she can still hear the music being played, and she smiles to herself. So back to the framing device, we see Maps and Olive are out trying to find some hints as to where where Robin could have taken the book. And they also talk like, hey, it seems like there's a recurring motif of books being stolen in this school. For instance, remember that one time? And we follow a Maps Olive story where Maps is trying to convince Olive that D&D is actually cool, except it's not called D&D, it's Serpents and Spells. And as she's trying to convince her of the such, all of a sudden they hear a crashing noise behind them, and they turn their flashlights and see that it's this werecat. It's this big cat-looking thing, and it hisses at them, and Olive tries to push Maps, saying like, "Oh, cast one of your spells, do whatever." But they see that the cat is holding a book that says Clarion's First Spell Book, and Maps realizes, that's exactly the prop I need for my campaign. And so they try to get it. It roars at them. And so they go off running. The cat seems to follow them, but when they reach a dead end, it just leaps through a window and crashes on the ground outside. We see the cat is actually Teakle. If you're unfamiliar with Teakle, that is the familiar cat to Clarion the Witch Boy. Apparently, he's been hanging out in the sewers outside of Gotham Academy, where Killer Croc has been put to sleep by some sort of magical spell because he wouldn't shut up about talking about the story of how he hit Batman over the head with a rock. It was a big rock. And so once Teakle shows up with the spell book, he's like, "Oh, good, let me see if it's in here." And he opens it up, and he sees that he apparently at one point drew a picture in here of him and Teakle being sidekicks to Batman. And he's like, this is the evidence, or the ingredient we need for our final spell. The ingredient is evidence of your childhood dreams. And we're going to put Batman under our spell and find out where he gets all those toys and that awesome car. That's it. That's the story. We then cut back to the framing device, and Olive is like, "Oh, by the way, I never told you, Batman asked me about Millie Jane's diary. I told him it burned up in the fire. He didn't believe me, and it disappeared soon thereafter." And Maps is like, "See? They keep on taking our books. Why do they keep on doing that? What's that all about?" And he says, like, "Well, the diary was filled with a bunch of notes about school secrets and passageways and stuff like that." And Maps pulls out something about a group called the Gilkey Warlocks. And Olive was like, "Who?" Flash into the story. Oh, I didn't even mention the last story was by Michael Dianalis, and this story is by David Peterson. We see there's a group of kids who play Dungeons and Dragons. They look straight out of Stranger Things, and this was back in the day. Headmaster Hammer was still fairly young looking, and the kids are like just reminiscent. They're like, "Oh, everyone's making fun of us because we play D&D. It sucks." And the headmaster goes up and like, "Are you playing that demonic game?" And they're like, "No, headmaster, never." As they're looking for a place to hide it, they accidentally find a secret compartment hidden on this wall. And as they step inside of it, turns out that it's some cupboard for the science lab, but it's a secret compartment. So they're like, "Yeah, we can dust this off and we can play a game in here." So they set up the game, got the player's handbook, they're rolling dice. And as they're doing all this stuff, all of a sudden the shadows around the room start warping and morphing and all this other stuff. And Maps basically says to end the story, "And none of them were ever seen or heard from again." And apparently in real life, they found the secret compartment again. They walked their way in. And Maps looks around, notices that there is a handprint and a place where there was a book that has been disturbed by the lack of dust. And it's like, look, see? Robin must have been here. And we cut to show Robin is up in the ceiling panels, just trying to hide and not be noticed by the pair of them. And, there's a pinup. That's the issue. It's fine. Like, it's out of all the yearbook issues, this one feels at the very least like the framing device makes a little bit more sense. I will say that the Black Canary one is just like not even close, whatever. But they at least do the best, because when they flash back from it, when they're done with it, they show Palm sitting in a room listening to the mixtape. Like, this at least feels like it has a little bit more flow to it, of we're saying things that make sense with the story, rather than just random ass stories that are like, oh, and remember that one time? Like, it's a Family Guy episode. So kudos. Like, this is, I think, the best yearbook issue there has been, but I'm still just not a fan of the general idea of it, because I would much rather them actually like be solving a mystery. Now, if they turn this into a mystery, if they turn this into a thing of like, why are Batman and Robin so interested in this stuff, and they manage to do that while also doing the anthology stuff, then great, fantastic. But the past 3 issues have not felt that way. This is the first one that feels like we're actually working towards something, even minutely, like a story being told and not just a clip show. So, yeah, I can't give it over a 7 just by concept alone, unless it like really knocks it out of the park. So I guess 7, but it's the best yearbook issue there's been. And that's not saying much. Starfire number 11, written by Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Elsa Charretier. So last issue, there was some touch and go stuff on whether or not Starfire was even going to live. She's fine, and now the party that they came down to Strata for can finally begin. So turns out they've already been drinking for like a day and a half straight, because the drinks down here in Strata are not only rejuvenating, but also, you know, get you drunk. So they're enjoying themselves. We see this random creature steps up, asks if they would join in a dance with him. Stella says no. Starfire's like, hell yeah. So she gets up. And then as they're dancing, the top of his head starts turning blue, to which point Atlee is like, oh, that's a sign that he's very attracted to her. Wink, wink. Then she has to go up and get a drink, leaving Stella alone. Stella then gets approached by this little furry guy named Chor. And Chor is very straightforward of like, how would you like to go back to my place? And bang. And she's like, I usually like to take things a little bit slower. And, you know, there's a whole thing there. And she's like, okay, well, how long does that ritual take? It's like, I don't know, a couple weeks, maybe in months. I mean, it's been a while for me and all this other stuff. And Chor's like, how about this instead? Shut up and let's go back to my place. To which point she throws Chor out the door. Atlee comes back and is like, their species actually only lives for 2 days. So yeah, they got to be pretty active and straightforward with getting with the mating. And she's like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have thrown him out then. I feel bad. So we then see some more time has passed. Stella's absolutely drunk off her ass, and Chor is bringing her back to their room, and he dumps her on the bed, and then turns to the other girls being like, how would you like to turn this into a foursome when she wakes up? And they're just like, well, Adley's like, yeah, sure, why not? And then Starfire's like, I'm pretty sure that Stella said no. And Adley's like, oh, right, then no, then never mind. So Starfire walks over to Chor and pets him on the head and says like, don't worry, I'm sure there's someone out there. And Adley's like, don't do that, what are you doing? And then all of a sudden he chorgasms and he falls down to the ground, and Atlee very quickly pulls up the back of his shirt, to which point like 7 or 8 little puffballs pop out, and each of these puffballs has a face, and they're all saying mama. Turns out that's how Chor breeds. So he takes the puffballs away and he's like, hey, thank you for a wonderful evening, ladies, goodbye. So it's like an ultra king size bed. Atlee and Starfire join Stella in it, and they just talk for a little bit, saying like, oh man, this is great, this is a fantastic day. And Atlee plays up how they're doing a spa day tomorrow, and it's going to be like nothing they've ever experienced. And then they talk a little bit about how different life was down here, where Atlee, because she was basically bred to be a protector of this realm, she always had to watch herself and, you know, play nice and like be reserved or whatnot. And Starfire can relate, being the princess of her own people, but then, you know, she lost that, what with the whole being kidnapped and sent off into slavery or whatever. But they more or less say like, well, all right, well, we'll have a great day tomorrow, and they have a good night. We then cut back up to the top where Soul is watching over whatever the thing's name is, the little pink thing that is her pet. And as they're driving in a pickup truck, it is staring at the wheel and then looking back at Soul, and Soul's like, I'm sorry, are you requesting to drive? Like, no, you're not you're a pink bug thing, you can't drive. It emits some sort of vapor out of its mouth. Soul falls asleep, and then it takes over the steering wheel. We then see it manages to drive for 3.5 hours up the coast of Florida until eventually it reaches, it says, Little Havana. It comes to a red light with this guy who's like, dude, is that a bumblebee driving a car? A pink bumblebee? What's that all about? And it's like laughing at it, and then the little bug thing zaps the guy's sports car and then drives away. When they arrive, the bug thing is nowhere to be seen, but Soul wakes up and looks like the bug drove Soul all the way to his aunt's house 3.5 hours away, because the aunt has MS, and despite the fact that Soul and the aunt talk very regularly, the aunt has never brought up that it's getting worse and her current meds aren't working. And we see one of the neighbors is like, oh yeah, he's the one explaining all this, and he's like, well, it's a good thing that you're here. If you need anything, I'm next door. And he's like, yeah, we'll do, thanks. So then we go to the spa day. They're all wearing some very revealing swimsuits that apparently are essentially just painted onto their skin in order to maximize the emotionalness of the spa water. So they hop in, and immediately they just start talking about themselves, just like, oh yeah, like, focus on something that you like. Focus on something that brings you joy and calm. And Stella's like, well, I guess, my brother's a very calming presence in my life. And Starfire's like, hey, I'm thinking the same thing. And then he just like kind of appears as a hologram in one of the waters. And then Stella's like, look, if we're able to be open and like say things to each other here, I just want to share, Starfire, I really don't want you to get with my brother. Like, he's been through a lot in his history, and I just want something safe and like natural for him. And you being who you are, being a superhero, like, there's a lot of violence in your life, and you can't guarantee like your own safety and all that stuff. And like, I just want an ordinary life for my brother, and I hope you don't think like that's too much or whatever. And basically her suit starts changing colors to like match her mood or whatever. So right now it's all tie-dye and stuff because it's very mixed up. It's very unclear what her emotions are. And Starfire's like, oh, I've never thought of it that way. Yeah, I of course, me being around has put you all in danger. I feel terrible about that. But like, I'm also relaxed. It's a weird kind of relaxed though. And she basically like just comes out with it and says like, yeah, I realize now the danger I put everyone in just by virtue of being around and like being who I am there. And so I was like, no, hey, I want you around. I want you to be in our lives and all that. That's fine. It's just like, I'm very protective of my brother, and like, I want like him to be safe and all that. He's, I'm just a scared older sister hanging on to like my younger brother. That's all this is here. I don't want him to be heartbroken. And now, like, as they keep going, they keep getting more and more emotional about this stuff and opening up more and more. And Adley's like, for the underground people, usually there isn't this much bottled up tension. So like, the emotional stuff is not supposed to be unpleasant. It seems like you humans of the top realm are bottling stuff up too much. So he's just like, yeah, no, like, people come after me all the time. There was already Bounty Hunter who found me. There was, of course, going to be more. Like, yeah, I'm a danger to everyone around me. And as Starfire wades out into the water, a giant octopus shows up and starts dragging her down underneath. And Stella's like, is that a hallucination? Am I still drunk? What is going on here? And as Starfire comes up, she's like, I'm still very peaceful and relaxed, but I'm also terrified. What is going on? I need help. And Adley calls out saying like, hey, that's just the masseuse. Don't worry about it. You're fine. And Starfire's like, oh, I'm sorry, masseuse. I almost tried to kick your ass. So Stella at that point is so like frightened at everything that just happened there. She's like, okay, I think I need a vacation from this vacation. So we see Adley talks with her parents saying like, yeah, I don't think the surface dwellers can handle the emotional fluids. It's a bit too much. And we continue on with Stella talking to Starfire, just walking down this garden path and basically just saying more, continuing of like and I realize now how much I put everyone in danger, and like, I'm happy that you let me know. It would be a lot easier if people just told me how they actually felt instead of all this like dancing around the actual truth or whatever. But they say like, look, I've never had a friend like you before. Nothing will change that, but like, we should pack our things and get back up. So they get back in the little bubble or whatever. Things are a little bit awkward now. And Starfire basically comes to the conclusion as they're raising back up to the surface world of like, yeah, I think I should leave. I think I should probably get going and move on to another place. I don't want to put people I love at risk so much. And Adley, Starfire's like, look, I'm not moving away yet. I'm going to take a look around and find a way to make Key West a safer place first. But then, yeah, I should probably get going afterwards. But as they are arriving, Stella gets a phone call and is basically saying, like, wait, what do you mean, where have I been? I told you I was taking a few days off. And then the other person on the other line apparently reveals that time moves differently between the two realms, and what was a few days for them underground ended up being a week and a half on the surface realm, to which Adley's like, whoops, guess I forgot to mention that. So as they're trying to drive back, they are stuck in wall-to-wall traffic, and Starfire's like, what's happening? Why are all these people here? And she's like, well, if we've been gone for a week and a half, I wanted to be back before this started, but this is the most busy time in Key West. It's our annual Fantasy Fest. It's a 10-day nonstop party. And Starfire's like, I think I'll stay a little bit longer. And that's the issue. This is a tough one for me. I appreciate an issue that can just sit and talk. Like, we don't need to have constant fights. I'm firmly of that belief for superhero comics that there doesn't need to be like a constant fight all the time of like whoever they just come across and then start punching each other. Like, none of that is necessary for a superhero comic, in my opinion. However, if you're going to sit around and talk, I think that you should have something to talk about that matches the length of how long you're going to sit and talk for. The fact that once they hit the emotional fluids, it was basically just Stella saying, hey, I don't want you dating my brother. Starfire coming to the realization that she's been putting people in danger, even if she didn't notice it. And then Stella trying to backtrack a little bit. Like, there's something. There's a good back and forth there that could have really turned into something. But Starfire got locked in on the I think that I should like not put people in danger part, that it didn't really feel like there was discussion. There was just talking at Starfire. And every page afterwards was just, Starfire, I urge you to reconsider. You really shouldn't be doing this. Oh, but I don't want to put people in danger, so I'm going to leave. And then we just kept doing that for 7 pages. That's where it gets annoying to me. That's the problem that I don't think that it quite managed to get figured out here. Now, we're wrapping up next issue. I know that we're not going to have this long-form, huge plot thing that needs to happen, but, you know, something. Just give me a little bit more depth to these characters rather than just, nope, I made up my mind, goodbye. As for the soul plot, I like that. I like the little bug thing, whatever the name of it was, just saying like, hey, your family's in danger. I'm going to take you to a place where you need to take care of your aunt. Like, I think that's fun. That's cool. I have no problems with that at all. It's a nice little addition to the storyline. It's just all the other stuff. I feel like the party aspect could have been so much more of really examining and showing what happens when Stella particularly is able to cut loose, because this entire book has been her very much buttoned up tight, like making sure things have to go well. It still feels like she's that here. So I don't know. I would have just rathered a little bit of something else, but what we got. I'm going to say it's a 6.5. It's not one of the best issues of this book by far, but it's fine. It's okay for what it is. I just wanted something else / more. Red Hood Arsenal number 11, written by Scott Lobdell, art by Dexter Soy. So last issue, they put Joker's daughter into therapy, and they came out the other side saying, she's either going to be a supervillain or a superhero. Who knows? And now she's on the team. Kind of. I really want to put an asterisk on that. Also, 2 issues ago, Arsenal apparently had a previous team called the Iron Rule. They kind of showed up, but not to Arsenal, only to Red Hood. So this issue picks up with Arsenal, who is reliving his memory of his last day with Iron Rule. And it turns out there was a city in Karak, where all of a sudden, like, the Iron Rule, this mercenary group that Arsenal was part of, rolled in, and they freed this city. And Arsenal's like, awesome, cool. And then I went off to go talk to the governor or whatever. I went to go to their capital city, and apparently the rest of the Iron Rule group insisted to the city that since they got rid of whatever dictator or warlord was ruling over them, that they would now fill in the gap. And when the city resisted, Iron Rule just killed everybody. And Arsenal took a little bit of umbrage with that. So the rest of Iron Rule, they're all licking their wounds. They're just normal people. They don't have as good of skills as Arsenal does. So he's taking them all out. And he's just like, you're just as evil as the regime we just took out. I cannot abide by that. And they're like, please, Roy, you don't have to do this. And he's like, too late. I've already hacked a US drone. It's going to drop a bunker buster on your heads. Goodbye, rotten hell. And he drives away on his motorcycle as seemingly they all get killed. And Arsenal feels guilty about that whole thing happening because it happened on his watch. He should have made sure it stopped. So all of a sudden he jolts awake. He realizes like, oh yeah, all this stuff happened. He mentions that Titan's Hunt recently happened there. So he's also had a little bit of a relapse in some areas. But he's like, yeah, all that stuff from the past, like it's still sticking with me. That's just who I am. Everything from my past affects me. And he explains that the name Iron Rule came from the fact that their one rule, their ironclad rule, was that they always leave a place better than what they found it. And he thought he was pretty clear about that, but apparently not so much. And when he was down in the Nethers 2 issues ago, he thought he saw Everest, one of the guys there, but he was all monstrous or whatever, and he's like, oh man, I just know in my heart that they're back. So Joker's daughter talks about her time in high school, finds out we're talking to Jason, and she says like, oh yeah, everyone loved me, I was super popular, whatever. And as she's going through this, like making innuendos about like, oh yeah, like I was the center of attention all the time, even the principal went out of his way, we see that like she's actually just causing mass mayhem and is like beating up everybody around. She's getting tased by a security guard, kicking a guidance counselor in the stomach, and then the principal, paying special attention, means attacking her with a baseball bat until finally she was wrapped up and thrown into solitary confinement. So according to her, that all happened. And she's like, yeah, so I'm so excited to start my first day at my new school tomorrow. Totally awesome. And like, I'm going to have to tell people that I was wearing a maniac's face for the last 3 months and pretending that I'm his daughter. That's a problem. And Red Hood's like, yeah, don't open with that. But here's the thing, Duella, like, this is a big transition. I'm the only one who thinks that you can manage through this. Are you sure that you're ready? And she's like, yep, absolutely. And then Red Hood just goes, you know, my mom used to smoke cigarettes, but like secretly whenever my dad was away. But every time my dad came back, he would beat her, saying how much of a waste of money it is. But she was so secretive about it that she couldn't figure out how he knew. And it turns out it was the smell of tobacco. She had grown so nose-blind to it because she was smoking constantly that she couldn't tell that she smelled like smoke. And Duell was like, okay. And then Jason reaches into his pocket and he's like, the same can be said for the rotting faces of the Joker. We threw this away when we were in the Nethers, and yet somehow it was stinking up our bathroom where you would put it under a floorboard for the past 3 weeks. What are you doing, Duella? Who taught you how to do this? And he basically calls her out saying, like, has this all just been a lie from day one? She's like, no, it was never a lie. I want to be a better person. I just need your help. And he's just like, Duella, just shut the hell up. And he's like, no, how could you say that? You don't believe me after everything we went through? And then she just starts laughing. And then she gets a maniacal look in her eye. And she's like, so here we are. Cut back over to the Roy story. He needs some information on the group. He goes to this spa that I guess is a cover for like mercenary work being dealt out. He doesn't have the current passwords, or maybe he's just too pissed off, so he just starts punching and shooting arrows through everybody that is in his way until he gets all the way to the back room. And when he's back there, he causes a little bit of chaos until he gets this guy named Bing, who's like, this isn't how we do things. You're out of order if you're here looking for work. He's like, shut up. I'm not looking for work. And he kicks him in the face. And he's like, I hear that Iron Rule is back. You're going to tell me where I can find them. And he's like, or what? You're not the type to kill people. That's not how you are. And he's like, yeah? You want to bet? So we cut back over to the Joker's daughter thing. Jason lets her have the face. And she puts it back on, and she's like, you're a lot like Dad. And he's like, shut up. He's not my dad. He's not your dad either. This is stupid, Duella. This is dumb. And she's like, oh, well, he took your life, but look what you got in place. You got your freedom. You're reborn. Same way I am. I became his daughter. Come on. We only have each other here since Dad's been gone. Let's not fight each other. Cut back over to Arsenal. He's talking to the guy who he's been intimidating. Turns out that he laid down some cryogenic arrows, some freezing arrows or something like that, where because this guy was sweating and half naked in a spa, he's freezing his ass off. And he's just like, yeah, look, I was messed up. I thought, look, he basically just says like, look, I had my problems in the past and I came to you and I'm glad that you saw through all my problems or whatever and gave me a job. But like, now I'm pissed off and I need you to tell me where Iron Rule is. And he lights Arrow on fire. It's offering up something like, you can have all the heat you want if you just tell me where I can find them. And then we go back to Duella and Jason, and Duella steals Jason's gun, aims it at his face, and he's just like, look, you're only making things worse. Like, if you come on your own, I promise you'll be fine. She's just like, oh, what? Promise? You're not going to be able to help me with anything. This is your last chance to work with me. We're family. We can burn the city to the ground. And she takes a shot. Jason dodges out of the way, kicks her. They were sitting up on top of like a soccer goal, kicks her down on the ground, and then shoots her in the chest. And Duella's like, oh my God, you shot me. And he's like, yeah, and you're fired. So then we go to Arsenal. He's leaving the spa, and he's like, well, I got the information I needed. Iron Rule apparently left town just as soon as they were done in the Nethers. Like, they're apparently in Metropolis, and I don't really want to have to go to Metropolis and like be on Superman's turf, but I got to take care of this before I can feel better about myself. And then as he's saying that, up on a rooftop is Iron Rule, and they yell down like, hey, you tried to kill us, we're gonna kill you now, we're gonna return the favor. And they're like, oh damn, not only is Everett changed by radiation or whatever, but all of them have superpowers, and I'm just a dude with a bow. Shit. So yeah, that's the issue. Okay, all right. I got a question. I got just one, like such a minor little question. Why did we do any of the Joker's daughter stuff? Why did we bother? What was the point of all that? Oh my God, I was so willing to give some of the benefit of the doubt. I was like, oh, hey, we're doing this thing where she's going to have to struggle to figure out who she really is and da-da-da-da-da-da. And then last issue, we set up this thing of like, oh, wait, hold on. No, she might have just been playing them the whole time. But I was still willing to give a little bit of the benefit of the doubt under the assumption that she actually like was this broken spirit, like was this, and maybe she is, maybe fine, whatever, but the story is not there. She wasn't even like around Arsenal when this happened. Instead, we're going back to this weird ass Iron Rule stuff that frankly was not set up in any meaningful way. And you could say, oh, it was set up here. No, it wasn't. All that was set up here was just enough to get us through the next two issues. Like, oh God. Every time I think that Scott Lobdell might fall backwards into an okay story, he all of a sudden sits back up and says, wait, no, I can fix this, and then makes it shit again. Art's good. I like the art. That's about all I can give you. No, all this just is just so worthless. All the Joker's daughter stuff ends up being a nothing burger. We're instead focusing on this Iron Rule stuff, which I couldn't have cared less about to begin with. We're giving Arsenal more heady backstory like we haven't done that 3 goddamn times over the course of the New 52. I just don't care. 5. Piss off. And that's it. That is all the comics that were put out by DC Comics this April 13th, 2016. And that makes next week, if my math is correct here, 420. Oh, shit. Oh, man. Read your comics while you smoke a fat doobie, while you take a bong rip, marijuana. I'm not actually that inept when it comes to drug culture. I'm not immersed in it, but like, I know it. I'm aware of it. I know how to speak. So I'm just a bit too straight-laced for that. I don't have the money to spend on drugs. Not that I'm looking, but like, all of my money goes into comics. So like, I can't have 2 debilitating addictions at a time. And I've made my peace with that. I'm sure I'm not the only one. But yeah, no, 420, blaze it, whatever. You know, I'm so happy that I made the decision to not put ad revenue on any of my episodes here. Not only as kind of just this general stick it to the man of like, screw you, I don't want your money anyway, YouTube, but also that I don't have to worry about saying things like that. I could just do. Algorithm be damned. I don't know why I'm feeling so rebellious. I literally am like not at all into 420 culture. And yet here I am saying like, yeah, screw the man, right? Anyway, let me tell you what comics are coming out next week. It's only 12, not a whole bunch, but you know, I hope I can hold your attention while your attention span might be a little bit reduced for some reasons. We have Action Comics, Aquaman, Dr. Fate, Flash, Harley's Little Black Book, Legends of Tomorrow, Martian Manhunter, Poison Ivy, Robin, Son of Batman, Superman, Lois and Clark, Titans Hunt, and Wonder Woman. That Poison Ivy, I shortened it, but it's the cycle of life and death. Out of that, I believe Action Comics is, of course, the continuation of the Final Days of Superman arc. And then Legends of Tomorrow is that one that has like 4 anthology stories in it. So it's going to be a long episode. I am sorry. I hope that you can forgive me, because the next week doesn't look much better. It's got 16 comics. Whatever. We're just going to fly by the seat of our pants and hope that everything works out. But if you have any comments that you would like to share on any of the comics I talked about last week, this week, or next week, go ahead and put them down into the comment section beneath this video. We are almost at the end of the show, people. If you want me to say your name, if you want me to call you out and say, hey, this person has something to say, you got like 6 weeks, 7 weeks. Hop on it. But yeah, just go ahead and do that. If you want another place you can go, we have a subreddit, a Discord, and a Patreon, almost all of which are bad places to go. But the Discord, we keep it fun. We keep it loose. Go ahead, jump in there. It's super cool. I think it's actually on screen, if I'm right. I think it's like right beneath me. But yeah, go to that. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for watching, listening, however it is you consume this podcast. Be sure to give it thumbs up or 5 stars or whatever the hell you're supposed to do, because as much as I rage against the algorithm, I do have an incessant ego that needs feeding, and I need to know that you enjoy what I do. So please, just for me, do that. But yeah, all that stuff, and always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.